Hello and welcome to the Wild Free Spirit podcast. Today I'm presenting to you it will be an amazing interview with my coach, Daniel Piatek. And I'm working with Daniel now since over 1.5 years. He's one of the biggest inspiration for me. He brought me through some really heavy shit. He told me to say the F word and to set boundaries in a healthy way. He went with me through hell and back, and thanks to him, I found paradise. And I admire him for his honesty, for his grounded spirituality, and for his way to see the world and see things. And he's not one of the hippy dippy spiritual people, thank God. He is a person who is living what he's teaching. And that's what I found most profound and most inspiring. So I'm so grateful to introduce you today to one of my biggest inspiration, to the person who maybe knows me even the best because he saw everything of me, of my light and my shadows, and who always supported me and who always believed in me. So thank you, Daniel, for doing this interview today with me. I'm so happy. And the first question is, how is it to walk through this world as Daniel?
Well, thank you, Silja. Thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate it. I love one of the things I love about working with you is that you're somebody who is really not afraid of herself. And it's amazing to me as I kind of have continued to do the work that I do, and I've done my own process, is how much as human beings we're just basically afraid of ourselves. And so that's one thing I really admire about your process, is that you're kind of up for whatever's going to happen. And what's amazing, I think, of you, as you've seen in your own work, is that as we encounter the parts of ourselves that feel more difficult or challenging, a kind of beauty and peace and relaxation and trust in life begins to emerge. And so I just don't see how one can happen. I don't see how one can get the result in a way that's real without going to those places. So thank you for the opportunity of working with you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm blushing.
So now you know what it's like to receive. So to answer your question, what is it like to be me in the world, is that in many ways my life feels, like, to look at it from the outside, I think it's there's a lot that seems kind of normal about it. It's just I kind of just go about my life, and I kind of live pretty simply in many ways. But as one gets to know me, or if you kind of look at what the inward experience is of being Daniel, I think it's in many ways I've kind of learned through now a number of years working with people that it's actually quite remarkably different than it is for most people. But what's wild for me is the inner experience is of life feeling more simple and magical at the same time. And somewhere along the road, I just sort of picked up and started living from the perspective as if all of life, meaning everything around me and everything inside me, is all working in support of me. And as I started doing that more and more, life began to kind of unfold mysteries to me, which are very simple in many ways. It's like it's I don't know, there's such a paradox. I think the thing about it's one of the things I help people to do in the work that I do is to live in paradox, where the idea of paradox is that there's two things that you're experiencing, two things that you know, two facts, two ways of seeing that are in and of themselves contradictory, but at the same time true. And what I've come to realize is that human life can be so profoundly simple. And the only way to that simplicity that I found is to be willing to dive into the complexity and the messiness of it. So I kind of live in a way that's, quite kind of, I don't know, simple, uncomplicated. And if you were to see me going through my days at times, there are times when, and we'll probably get into this, I'm sure, where I have to stop and take a half an hour to let my body absolutely sob and shake and release energy from the past. And so I think sometimes I wonder, it's like, I don't know if my neighbors can hear me, but they must wonder, oh, this poor man. Because I kind of designed my life such that oftentimes, I'm able to take a little bit of time out to, and we'll talk about this so that your listeners understand it, to clear the energy of the unresolved past. And as I do that, my inner experience becomes more peaceful, more calm, more simple. Things that used to be complicated and difficult to understand actually by themselves seem to just present themselves as more simple, more understandable. So I don't know if that answered your question exactly, but I'll just leave it at that, and then you can take it from there.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Wow, that was already super inspiring. We met last year at Ubud, a co-working space here in Ubud. And back then we were both like working, and you were like starting with like building up your coaching business on a bigger and larger level. And we started, like, I remember you gave me a tarot reading. That was the first time that I experienced you and your magic. And it was shortly before you left for Vietnam.
Yeah.
And it was like just getting this reading from you. It was like, oh yeah, I want to work with you. That was like directly clear for me. And you also shared back then that you didn't had an easy life path. And so I'm wondering how Daniel came into life coaching. Why did Daniel decide, okay, I will be a coach now and I will support people in my healing? What made you click to decide that?
Well, I still feel like I haven't decided that in a way. If that makes sense. So it's the work that I do for sure, and I embrace it fully. And actually, my work is going through another change right now, kind of a big change. But the way that it's come, and it's how I sort of coach people, and I refer to the work that I do with people as a mentorship. When people come to work with me over time, is that I'm helping them through difficulty, helping them through releasing the unresolved past, teaching them how to see their inner and outer experience from new places, which gives them access to different answers. And to, in essence, to train them bit by bit in how to see life differently. And when you see differently, it just gives you access to different information, different responses to life. So my own path has kind of led me over the last, this work in this form began about 6 years ago, I guess. But 6 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, it didn't look anything like it looks like now. But it's been an emerging process. And it's what it is that I'm trying to help people to understand, is that if if we can participate in a process of allowing the essence of who we are to slowly emerge, it will lead the way. This deeper part of us will lead the way. So why I gave the kind of slightly smart ass answer to your question about deciding on doing this work is, in a way, the work has emerged and it's continuing to emerge. And so the way I've chosen to live my life, and it's really been my whole life, but with just all the challenges that have happened in my life, it feels like each challenge has taken me into a deeper surrender and a deeper acceptance that that there's something in me that can show me that it's not my job to figure it out. It's my job to listen and follow. And so as I've done that, my life has just been working out in ways that I couldn't have imagined before, in really beautiful ways. And so, the challenges, the difficulties have been, I don't know if we could talk about this if you want, but one of the ways I see the difficulties has been around, bringing people into my life and choosing to keep them in my life that, simply didn't have the ability to see me or see other people. In today's terminology, we refer to these as sort of people with high narcissistic traits. And when I speak about that, I'm speaking about it in a way that's very specific. I'm not talking about they like to spend their days on Instagram kind of narcissism. I'm talking about the kind of narcissism that comes from having over time lost touch with their own pain and have decided in essence not to deal with their own inner pain. So therefore they're projecting it out onto others. And so, kind of the sickness or the addiction that I've been working on in this life is, hey, you look like you're really kind of messed up and don't want to deal with it. Come on, let's go spend 10 years together and build a life. And so, so that took the form of, a spiritual teacher and guru for 10 years. It took the form of a 10-year relationship, and bosses, my father, et cetera, et cetera. And so the way out of that for me has been to, and I was sort of fell into learning this about 5-6 years ago, was simply to go in and use the wisdom of the body to release the unresolved trauma in the body. And it's opened up a whole world of understanding of who we are and how we heal that I didn't have before, even after having 25 years of quite involved and dedicated spiritual searching and practice in different ways. I mean, I spent so many years trying to, in essence, escape this world through transcendent spiritual practices, which gave me a lot. It's not that they weren't helpful, but what I found was the immense magic, the profoundness of daring to come in and actually learn to deeply be with ourselves here in our bodies. It's I never knew that this would be the way that I would find my own kind of freedom in this life. So my work has emerged out of my own process. And as I continue my process, my work keeps shifting and changing. So that's why I feel like, yes, I need to be the one to kind of say, yes, I'll take this next step. But it almost feels like I'm not dreaming something up and making the choice. It's more like I've submitted to a process where the choice has already been made, and I keep getting surprised by where I get led.
Wow. I know that some of my followers have experience with narcissists, that I definitely had. And I would love to go a bit deeper into this area, into narcissism, because I know that's a topic for you as well. So what would you recommend somebody who is in a narcissistic relationship or who was in one? Like, what was your experience in it? And what are maybe warning signals for that kind of relationship?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know a lot of questions. Maybe start with, how do people know if it's
Yes.
narcissistic?
Yeah. So I'm gonna sort of give a top level overview to try to cover this whole territory. And then if you want to come back and go deep anywhere, then we can do that, Celia. But um because there's so much to understand on one level, but on another level, it's kind of straightforward.
Mm.
So in terms of how to know when you're in a situation where that's basically very fundamentally not good for you. Um, do you chronically doubt yourself? Do you often feel confused? Do you feel like mentally and emotionally like you have to walk on eggshells and you have to be careful of what you say or do because you don't know what the response is going to be if you just do the thing that pushes the other person over the edge? Um, Confusion is one that's quite, I think most of us don't think about it, but if we kind of get into conversations with people that are functioning this way, and you kind of feel like why it goes in circles, it's confusing as hell. Why can't we ever get to the bottom of something here? What else? Feeling very kind of alone. Like, I mean, to me, there's nothing worse than being in a relationship and feeling very alone. And so I would start with these really kind of very simple things. And I think the thing is that a lot of people experience these things, and just because of what they've experienced in their past, assume that it's just the way it is. It's just normal, because that is the case for a lot of us. It's what we're used to, so we don't really know or expect that things can be different than that. And that's one of the challenges in my work in many different ways, is helping people to expand and say, actually, there's so much more that's possible than what your experience is going to say is possible. And so this is one of those ways, is that, wow, you mean it's possible to actually be in a relationship where I feel loved, seen, supported? Is that no, that can't be. That that I feel invited to share myself in ways where I'm not then going to get have that information used against me later, this kind of things. So I want to define really quickly how I kind of see this world of kind of narcissism, because I don't look at it as a clinical diagnosis. I'm looking at it as a way of being. So for me, what it means to kind of have high narcissistic traits is that one, in essence, really lacks the ability to truly see the other. So if you think about the idea of empathy, being able to really see and understand and feel and know who somebody is. We all, human beings, lose that capacity as we step further and further away from our own inner pain. So as we cut off from our own internal conflict, we're in essence kind of losing more and more of our own humanity. And so at some point, you could say that the being chooses, makes some choice. It gets reinforced over time to basically say, get to this point where, what pain? What pain? Just ran into this with my father. It's just so interesting. So, and because they won't recognize their own pain, they literally cannot see the other person as a human being. There's no room for the other person's challenges of being a human being. They just present themselves to that person as a problem that then the person with the narcissistic traits basically then blames you for. So we get blamed. So this is another telltale sign, is if that other person is making you responsible for their uncomfortableness, it's your fault. It's your fault. So I've become quite a intense kind of person around these things. I kind of wonder if I'm ever going to be able to be in a relationship with people, because I just learned that because I've seen it so many times that somebody who's going to make me responsible for their discomfort is an untrustworthy person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, and it's kind of, unfortunately, at this moment in time, it's still quite a high bar to expect another person to take responsibility for their own discomfort. So let me stop for a minute and say something about that, to be clear. So I can be involved with somebody in a way where I do something which, I could be an asshole, let's say, or I could just do something which is thoughtless. So I am perfectly willing to kind of say, oh yes, I'm so sorry, I'm taking responsibility for it, when that creates discomfort in that other person. But what I'm saying is not, how do I say this? What I'm saying is, if I do something that causes you discomfort, I'm going to ask you to see that it's your discomfort and to deal with it in a way where you take the responsibility. You have the ability to respond to me in a respectful way. But if you're going to make me the cause of your discomfort, that's a relationship that over some period of time, I probably am going to choose not to be in with somebody. And I've had a number of people that I've kind of parted ways with over this last period of time, because I just realized if people are not willing to take responsibility for their own discomfort and pain, that, even they can have some very lovely qualities but basically at some point the machine gun is going to come out of the back pocket and and I'm bleeding on the ground. Right? These are games that at this point in my life, finally, I'm opting not to play with people. And the thing is, most of us have grown up in households where this was the norm. And so the beauty about how I see this, Silja, is that we are spiritual beings who have come here to have this experience in this human form. And so the work I do with people, I come at it from a place which is different than many therapist types do, is that I don't see somebody who's broken, who's trying to kind of put themselves back together. It's not how I see what this is that we're doing here. I see somebody who is whole, perfect, and complete, who is stuck inside an experience where they feel very broken. That's different. And I treat people as if they're whole, perfect, and complete spiritual beings who know exactly what's going on. It's in there. Yeah. I'm going to ask you to say something about this when we're done, just because to help people understand this. But if you treat people that way, then and you kind of see the dilemma as that, and you treat them in that way rather than as broken, fragile people, I just feel like it calls the best out of us. And we're dealing with peeling off layers of stuff that never belonged to us, as opposed to trying to going and filling in cracks. Because we're not. We've just over time taken on these identities and these beliefs and stuff that never were who we are, never will be who we are, and to let those go.
You mentioned about your technique about cleaning out. Can you say more about that? What does that mean to clean out that kind of things?
Yes. So the word is clearing out. So how I use it, to clear it out. So same idea, but the very simple understanding is that if you think of who we are, the essence of who we are, and of all matter as energy. So I'm going to assume that people listening to this will have some idea about that. But if you go to science, if you go to science, I mean, I learned in high school science, energy is matter, matter is energy, and they're interchangeable. So Einstein knew this, and then with quantum physics, it became another matter entirely, but the same idea. So the idea here, and it's a pretty common way of viewing the effects of trauma these days. I mean, luckily we're living in a moment in time where we're understanding the effects of trauma in these ways that give us different access to different ways of helping people out of it. So the idea of trauma, something happens to us that's too far, too fast, too soon, too much. So something happens to us. And when we're kids, this happens a lot. And if if we're not embraced by the people in our environment or somebody in our environment in a way which says, in essence, I saw that, that shouldn't have happened, that was really awful, I see it, come here, it's okay, you're gonna be okay. If that doesn't happen, then the energy of that life that went boom to us, too much, too fast, too soon, etc., boom. If we're held in the embrace, either physically, mentally, emotionally, by somebody, something, a culture that supports that, I see it, it happened, it shouldn't have happened, it wasn't your fault, etc., the impact of that can move itself through our body and leave, and there's basically nothing but a memory. There isn't the lasting impact of it. However, in many cases, this didn't happen when we were children. In past lives, I see it in my work a lot. We have the residues of past lives. If you don't believe that, you don't need to. Just look at this life. And so what I'm doing is I'm approaching the person as in their current situation in life is bringing up. So let's say something happens with the person that you're spending time with now in the present moment. They say something, they do something. Now, everybody understands this idea of getting triggered these days. So something happens and we get triggered. Now, what happened in that moment, as I see it, is this person may or may not have done something that you're going to want to address. Like they may have done something you want to address. But when we get triggered, the emotional and energetic content of what comes up has very, 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 very little to do with what just happened with that person. Is I think of it like a tuning fork. They said those words, it was like a tuning fork, ding, and it vibrates in our body. And all of the stuff that's left over from the past, because we weren't embraced with love and acceptance, when mom and dad did what they did, lives in our body, and it starts to go ding as well. And before you know it, our whole body's going ding. This is what I call triggered, getting triggered.
Oh God, yeah.
So this is the thing. And so most of us, the way we've been taught or think about it, if we're trying to be conscious and dealing with it, is we go to our mind and try to sort it out. And what I'm going to say is that's the last damn thing you want to be doing. Because if you can see this as the perspective of there is energy here, which is now active again in my system, it's like there are parts of you that are suddenly back at 2-year-old, back at 4-year-old, back at 10-year-old in those moments when somebody wasn't there to love, hold you, support you, and tell you everything's going to be okay. So guess what? In that moment, when this person said that thing and went ding, and your whole body went ding, and all yours like ding, is you get to be that person who loves, accepts, and supports it. Because when you do it now in the present moment, the residue of all of those things in the past begins to leave. And so as we do this work and really take this up as a way to approach getting ourselves out from under tremendous limitation. I think this is the thing. We don't have any idea of how limited we are because of this stuff, because it's operating in the background. We only see a small part of the way it limits us. So you start to take on the process of being there for yourself when the world goes ding, body goes ding, and you're going, ah, and I'm here. This is okay. Love, support, accept. Be curious. Not judging, not figuring it out, not trying to suppress it, and see it as energy that's coming up. And literally just imagine it's energy coming up. How do I love, support, and accept it and help it to leave my energetic system, my body, and therefore it no longer lives in me. And I knew nothing about this stuff before, maybe 6 years ago. And it was when I left a relationship of 10 years that there was almost nothing of me left. Seriously, almost nothing of me left after the end of those 10 years. And this was after previous 10 years with my guru. This was 20 years of being in really, there was very little of me left. Luckily, I discovered this way of healing. And over a little bit of time, I realized, hey, this weird shit works. mean, I was trained I have a degree in biology and chemistry. You know, I'm like sort of a trained scientist in a way. And my scientist mind can understand this energetically. But when you look at the stuff and go, how does this stuff work? The honest answer is I don't know, but it does.
Yeah, and I feel that it really, really works. Like the work that I did with you is so profound and so deep. I'm deeply grateful for like you who did the work on yourself, because I work best with people who've been to hell, who've been to their own personal hell, and who are not afraid to go into my hell and to hold me during me standing in flames, and are not like freaking out and saying like, oh my fucking god, there's so much flames around you, Silja. And that's what I always admired with you, like working with you. How do you do that you're not freaking out? Is it really like you've been to your own personal hell and that's the reason why you like nothing can really shock you anymore, or where is that coming from?
Yeah. So there's probably a couple parts of it, but you're hitting on what I think is the major part of it. Because I see it's been interesting for me this last year. Most of my clients, I mean, not everybody, most of them have been healer coach types. So it's been interesting for me to work with people and to see that, because I'm noticing there are people who I work with who are healers who are not really doing their own healing. And because I work intuitively, and I do use the tarot as one of my tools, and it'll come up when I'm working with somebody, and I really do my best to not impose my own beliefs into things. But because I just assume I may believe things and I'll take them, but I'm going to turn it over to something that actually knows how to help this person rather than just me imposing my beliefs. And I'll be leading people. I say, look, these cards are telling me that these, you know, that this you need to be doing this stuff. And then I'm seeing that it ends up causing problems for people in different ways, because a little while ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, I remember all of a sudden, I think you were kind of part of this and some of the people coming in. And I realized at some point, it's like, thank God I'm doing my own, I'm continuing to do my own work, because I could not be here to support these people. It would be too much for me. It would be too much for me because my sickness in life has been to take responsibility for the other person's pain. This is what kept me in those situations, right? And so I healed myself. I'm continuing to heal myself out of that by what? Not by understanding it, not by kind of understanding the dynamics better, and not by seeing it more clearly how I do it, because that's too much work. I just go to the root and clear out the shit that drives the engine in me to want to take care of people. I just go clear the stuff out. And as I've done that, I'm able to actually really be there for somebody and let them fall into that place that their wisdom wants to take them to right now, without me feeling like I have to be the one to make it better. And the thing is, what I find is they actually get better. I mean, it's just like, it's not mine to do. It's the space for me to hold and to guide them. And the thing is, what I've seen in myself and I've come to deeply trust is, because holy hell, I've gone to some just really painful places in me. And I realized, yes, that's exactly where you go. And the gift lies down at the bottom of that hole. And as soon as you drop to the bottom of it, that gift is yours. It becomes you. You become it. You claim it. And so for me, when somebody's going through it and they're wondering, and sometimes I'll see it in their face, it's like, I mean, I'm sure some things come to mind for you. It's, like, because you're coming up and this old energy gets activated in your body. And as that old energy gets activated, so does the fear that happened in that moment when you were 2. And so suddenly, instead of a 35-year-old woman in front of me, I have a 2-year-old who's freaking out, right? And so, but what I know is, if all I have to do is just keep her steady and say, you're fine, it's okay, it's okay. And the wisdom that is there does the work. right? Because to me, it's so, I mean, it makes me want to cry to see the beauty that is kind of locked up inside of us as this wisdom, and the beauty of the person gets discovered by going to those places. And I know this in my own experience. So when it shows up on the other side, sometimes it looks like I go, holy, there's a part of me that's going, holy shit, this looks like an exorcism.
Yeah, we definitely
Right?
did some.
At times, so there's a part of me, but the bigger part of me is like, no, this is fine. This is fine. She's fine. I just got to kind of keep holding her there. So that's a big part of it. The other piece of it is, this seems to be the work that I was born to do, because this is not work I set out to do. So I would just add that to the other piece of, I think, why I'm able to do this is because as I've gone in and cleared out the old trauma, this is the beauty of this, is like, for those of us who want to, be our authentic selves, that want to live our purpose, live our mission, what I'll say is, from my own experience and now from a handful of clients that have really kind of taken this far, is it's in there. It's in there already. There's a part of you that knows, it's got the instructions, that knows what it's doing. It's got the gifts, it's got the talent, it's all there. Your job is to just start clearing out all the piles of trash and shit and beliefs and that's on top of it. And as you do that work, which is not exactly glamorous, it's like, don't get out your best suit and tie and your heels to do this work, honey, because it's not going to look pretty by the time. But the thing is, it can really be the most amazing work to do. I don't want to paint this as because, and I'm going to ask you to say something about this, because it's so ennobling. There's something about it that's so ennobling, because I don't know. I don't want to say why. It just is. Because you see, I can do this. I don't need this, that, the other person, this structure, this organization, whatever. This is sort of claiming a kind of sovereignty over ourselves that I think is inherently built into us. So I think the process itself is just inherently ennobling.
The process is very, for me, empowering. Like, it wasn't easy, like so many sessions and so many SOS that I sent it out to you, like, oh my God, Daniel, do we have time for a session? Oh my God. Like, I'm still remembering the ones where I was crying in the bathroom when I was sending you a voice message, and we had like a session about it. Like, oh my God.
Yes. Let me say something here, because I'm just seeing it, because the thing is, we've been trained in different ways to see that when we're in these states, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. It's just built into us that we kind of automatically see it this way. And on one hand, I would say there's truth to that. There's something that needs to be seen, to be addressed, to be dealt with. So in that way, I would agree with that. However, if you see the whole thing from a different place, and this is the biggest part of what I'm doing with people, is teaching them to see their own experience from a different point of view. And when you do, you relate to it totally differently. So now if you see this as like, yeah, this isn't fun, I really would rather not be feeling this right now. Yes. And cool, there's old shit that's been keeping me trapped, and I may not know exactly how much this has been keeping me trapped or down, or not believing in myself, or lacking confidence, or et cetera, is now coming up for me to be there to allow it to leave me. And you do it, and what was wrong suddenly becomes the doorway. How do I say this sometimes? When you see your problems as the doorway to your beingness, the doorway to your future, and you embrace them rather than try to fight them, and you stay out of your head and you stay in your body, and you learn how to support yourself. This is why. So now I'm realizing, when you ask me this, what's it like to be Daniel? It's like, well, in many respects, it looks kind of normal, but come home and see me. It's like, this last month, I'm doing some new stuff in my work. So it's bringing up stuff in me that's old, about lacking self-confidence. And so what happens is I get there, I'm working on stuff, and before I know it, my body is kind of going ding, and I'm standing on my table doubled over sobbing, because there is some energy of not feeling good enough, of something from the past, of daring to step out into being seen and it not being welcomed. And I don't worry about trying to figure it out. I just say, look, my body knows what it's doing. Can I just be here to let my body throw this stuff off? And I'm just there for myself. as that happens. And then I sit back down and I start writing again.
And this work, like, it made me free. Like, it made me free in ways that I would never assume that I could be free.
Yes.
And it sounds so weird, but I breathe freely. Like, I really can see and experience life in a different way. It's like somebody doubled up the colors of life and the sound of life and the taste of life. It feels differently to experience life without all the layers and layers and layers. And also it makes me have more empathy with myself and being more easy on myself, because I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Yes, this is one of the things I think that is like, if we can start to realize how fucking difficult it is to be a human being.
Yeah.
And to relate to ourselves from that perspective, as opposed to all of these ideas that kind of modern culture really feeds, of some of these ideas of perfection and how we don't measure up constantly, and just say, screw this, I'm going to just be here with myself and support myself through this challenge. And I love what you said about life appearing in all these ways, because this is the thing, is we don't know until we release these layers of stuff. We don't have any idea that we're missing out on all kinds of things in life. And I'm not speaking about, just kind of otherworldly spiritual experiences. That's part of it also. But I'm talking about just the simplicity of life and being able to relax more fully into my body, trusting that I'm okay. Trusting that fundamentally I'm okay, because I've learned that when I'm not okay, I'll be there for myself. This is the thing. Like I tell people, it's like I feel like the most important thing I can help people learn how to do is how to deeply, deeply, deeply love and support themselves. But in so many ways, because as we learn to do that, be there for ourselves when this human being experiment gets hard and ugly, be there for ourselves, we just get a sense of trust that life is good because we've taught that to ourselves. It's like we've claimed back our history, which taught us that life wasn't safe and that people who love us act meanly.
Yeah.
It's like really rewriting our own story. And then because of that, just day-to-day life starts to become a really different thing.
Oh my God, I love that. I could speak hours with you, Daniel, but I don't want to make the interview really, really long. So I would love for you to share like the essence of your teachings, and now I'm making it hard for you, in 3 to 5 sentences, the essence of your teaching. What is, like, when people are like, oh wow, that was a lot of knowledge right now. What are the key things that people can take away from you and from your teachings?
Oh my God.
I told you, don't make it easy.
I know. So I'm going to just trust. I'm going to just kind of trust what comes up and see what comes out of here. So the essence of my teaching: life is hard. We are whole, perfect, and complete. Our job is to teach ourselves that. All the answers we'll ever need in life, we already have, if we have the heart and the courage to go looking for them, by digging through maybe a lot of trash.
Oh my God, I love it, Daniel. Wow. That's incredible.
I like that too. I'm gonna have to listen to this again.
Yes. Oh my God. Like, it was really like, this bing, but it was like this good bing, this, my whole body is like so resonating.
Yes. And so, so this is a good trigger, I guess. So
oh my God. Oh, I feel
so the thing, Silja, one of the things I've kind of learned through my process, and this has been through just for doing this work with myself, is that there's a way to be in this process with ourselves where it's light, it's lighted, and we learn to see the the kind of cosmic humor in this, because
Mm.
because we teach ourselves that we're not broken.
Mm.
And if you realize, if you start to, and you can, people can get the words, but when you start to do this, you start to have this experience at times. I am whole, perfect, and complete.
Mm.
And then as you start to really experience this more, that really is true. It's not just the words in the book. And it's not when I sit on my cushion and meditate for 6.5 weeks and not talking to anybody that I feel it. But no, in my body and in these moments, I feel this. So then it becomes a different thing, because whole, perfect, and complete learns how to take out the trash. It can be humorous.
Mm.
It can be fun. It can be silly. It can be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is why I've kind of, I don't say I had to learn it. It's sort of come as I've done more and more work on myself and see it with other people, is that this is serious business, but it doesn't have to and all be heavy at all.
Yes. And I feel that with you so much. Oh, Daniel, I had always a so good time with you, even though I was crying and sobbing and screaming. Like, you laughed, I loved, we had a good time. Being in hell and eating ice cream. That's how I picture our sessions. I hope people will picture our sessions now.
Yes. I want to say one more thing. I know your time is tight, but this, because to me, I also want to just add in, to me, there's a larger context for all this personally, is that many people talk about this, and it's the information I'm getting from where I get my information, is that we are now stepping into this time of profound change on the planet that will likely take a number of generations to really accomplish. But we are going through a process of transmuting, of literally changing what it means to have a human experience, so that by the time this is done, I don't know how long it's going to take, 30, 40, 50 years, I don't know, the experience of being a human being will be completely different. And we're at this time where in your life and my life, as your life, as my life, we are going through the process of transmuting what it means to be a human being. How are we doing it? By everything we just talked about. Because having a life in a body without all of this stuff, all of this conditioning, seeing that I am a spark of the divine here living as a human being. And as more and more of us free ourselves and we relate to each other in this way, we create structures in society and culture from this place. What it means to be a human being will be utterly, completely different in a way that you and I can't imagine right now. So to me, this is how my life, my work is changing right now, as I'm dedicating myself to that mission, is doing this, helping people do the exact same work, but in this context where we are creating the next evolution of human being through the work that we're doing right now. What a project.
Oh, it sounds like a small project. Like, thank God we didn't sign up for something big. Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
thank you so much, Daniel. Wow, that was so much fun and so much like ding in a good way.
Yes.
And yeah, I love to speak to you, and I hope the listeners really enjoyed listening to you. I will put all the social media links and the homepage of Daniel in the show notes, so you can check him out and enjoy his work. I really recommend everyone to work with Daniel. For me, he's one of the best teachers and coaches and trainers I had, and like ever. So I highly appreciating you, Daniel. Thank you so much for your time. I love you so much. And
thank you
so much for listening.
Bye.